Okay, guys, let's talk about a film that's not only rotten, but it's also a little bit crazy and strange on top of it. And that would be 2019's The Fanatic, starring John Travolta and Kevin Sawa and others. It is 17% on the tomato meter and 31% on the audience score. Now, there aren't very many reviews here. We only have 217 audience reviews. And the main reason for that is that this thing pretty much went straight to digital streaming. It had some kind of single theater release out there somewhere, technically making it a movie theater released film, but it really wasn't. It pretty much it was a red box production and went right to streaming. Now, the weird thing about this is that it features John Travolta in what appears to be an honest attempt by John Travolta as playing some type of mentally impaired character, the main character, the fanatic. It's kind of up to your interpretation on whether or not it's humorous or whether it should be considered just straight up seriously, because it's one of those films that some people might consider it, some critics out there might consider it so bad that it's good just to see something so crazy and rotten. But I watched this even after watching other people's opinions on YouTube that this was one of those films that I would enjoy laughing at the rottenness of it. I watched this with an open mind, and no, it really wasn't that funny. It really wasn't that bad and funny at the same time that I could consider this so bad that it's good, or that I might consider this at some point in the future to be a cult classic. I don't think it'll ever get there because the humor, if you can find humor in the rottenness, it's just not enough to laugh out loud. I found it just weird in a weird way that just kept me watching the whole thing. I certainly did watch this entire film. I was under no feeling that it was boring. I was under no impression that I needed to fast forward it or that I wanted to shut it off. And I can't recall if I saw this on Netflix or I saw it on Amazon Prime. It was one of those two, and I could have shut it off at any time and watched a whole lot of other things. That would have been a better use of my time. But no, I actually found myself sitting through this entire thing just to see how weird it was. And this film was shot obviously on location around downtown Los Angeles, but it was shot, everything else in the film that wasn't a part of downtown LA was shot in Birmingham, Alabama. And I guess Travolta shot this at the same time he was shooting something called Trading Paint. Now, I don't know if I'll get to Trading Paint on another episode of Rotten Reviews, but let's just stick to the Fanatic. Yeah, it's certainly rotten, and we're going to get right into those audience reviews and find out what other people think before I waste any more time on it. Let's see, we have half a star from 5 days ago. I watched this movie thinking it would be funny, is a terrible cinema kind of way, but yeesh. John Travolta portrays a 1950s stereotype of a mentally defunct adult. It's offensive in the most unenjoyable way. Half a star on that. Well, if I had to give this a star review, I'm saying I'd give it 1 star because I actually sat through the whole thing and didn't feel like I needed to turn it off or do something else. I wasn't just straight up bored. So I'm going to say 1 star, but I can see where you can get the half a star depending on whether it rubbed you the wrong way. John Travolta's portrayal of somebody that's not all completely right in the head. To make a simple story even simpler, let's just say that John Travolta plays a character called Moose, who is known as Moosey to his, I don't know, BFF, who happens to be a female photographer in the LA area. This story is narrated by this BFF character, this female photographer who's like a paparazzi of some kind, and she's, for some unknown, inexplicable reason, best friends with Moose, and she kind of narrates the film, and her narration is a little bit weird and doesn't quite fit, and it gets worse as the film continues. But that's not the real flaw in this. Let's just say Moose, he's obsessed with an action hero played by Kevin Sawa, or Devon Sawa, excuse me. And Devon Sawa's character is like this kind of B-movie action star, something you would see in a 1990s film. And, you know, Moose is obsessed with him, and he needs to get his autograph, and when he has the chance to get the autograph from this action star, The action star turns out to be a real dick, an over-the-top dick to his supposed fans, and he doesn't get that autograph. And then Moose kind of goes on a quest to not only get his autograph, but to invade the privacy of his home and hang out with him. And he has this fantasy that he'll become friends with this action star, and he's basically a stalker. He's like a mentally deranged stalker character, not completely evil, although he does some stuff that's questionable and it's kind of weird. Now, this film was it was written by the lead singer of Limp Bizkit. I guess his name is Fred. It's Fred Durst. Is it Durst? I think it's Fred Durst, and I don't know much about him because I wasn't a Limp Bizkit fan. But apparently, Durst wrote this. Drawing on his experience with some kind of fan that was stalking him in his music days. Now, he's the director of this film, and you can kind of tell because there's a scene in this movie where the main character, or not the main character, but the action hero character is with his son, and they're driving in a car, and he makes it a point to introduce his son to Limp Bizkit, the band. So the director's kind of putting his own music in here, but I guess this is supposed to be based on a true story where the director was stalked by a fan of some sort, and I would believe it, and I would believe that for as weird as it is, John Travolta's portrayal of this fan, Moose or Moosey, I would say it's probably accurate. There are certainly weirder stalkers out there than this one. Now, people are offended, I guess, that this character's on the spectrum or something like that, and they take offense to it, but nah, I didn't, because I consider this weird portrayal of a deranged stalker to be kind of subtle compared to what I've seen in the real world, articles out there on stalkers. So in any case, this Moose character, he's not supposed to be a villain, but he actually ends up killing a maid, a Mexican maid character, a housekeeper character of this action star. And it's really weird the way this happens. And so this film ends with our stalker character played by John Travolta, Moose. It ends not in a happy ending, but in an ending that's neither happy or not happy, where he's actually killed somebody and he's become disfigured and maimed by his own action star, who has decided to maim him instead of calling the police. And everybody in this kind of does villainous things and kind of makes themselves look like a sociopath, but it never ends up with any punishment, and it never ends up with any clear theme. Like, you don't get a sense that villains were punished or people were punished for the wrongdoings. Everybody just turns out to be a villain and then goes on about their business at the end. And that narrator character, the photographer voiceover character, she comes back and she says, well, that's just the way it is, and Moose just chalked up losing his hand and losing one of his eyes to something that he'll consider, a story to tell people in the future. It's very strange. Like, the villainous things that do happen, they go unpunished, but they're not shown to be, I don't know, they're not shown to be anything moral. They're just things that these weird characters do to each other, and then, they kind of walk off into the sunset. And it's actually the action hero character that's a dick to his fans that ends up getting arrested by the police. And I guess the movie is telling us that John Travolta killed this Mexican maid, and somehow the police think that the action hero did it himself because he was having like an affair with her previously, before the film took place. I don't know. I didn't get a message out of it. I just thought it was kind of weird, and it was so weird I just kept watching it all the way through. And there's no good guys or bad guys. There's just people acting in very weird ways. And even the photographer, best friend of Moose, she's not really good or bad. She's just there to like make the plot go along and give us some narration, and she just goes about her business at the end too. Very strange, but I'll still say it's 1 star, because with all this weird stuff going on, I never felt like turning it off, and I never felt angry or that I was wasting my time. I just said, this is so weird, I have to keep watching it. And let's move on with the audience reviews. Half a star, womp, womp, womp. Pretty terrible movie. January 4th, 2020, 2.5 stars. Travolta is really good, and I enjoyed the majority of the film, but the ending is absolute trash. Yeah, well, Travolta's acting, I can't decide if it's good or bad because it's obvious from a couple of scenes that he was improvising and he caught himself in his own mistakes a couple of times. But yet, the overall performance was convincing. He did seem like a weird stalker character with mental deficiencies. And so, even if Travolta's performance was bad, it still worked largely. So I can't really say it was good or bad. I just say, well, it was weird enough to keep me watching. And another weird part was Travolta. We know he's follicle challenged like a lot of us. So Travolta had kind of a grayed out, a grayish haired wig on top of his head that was kind of cut like really roughly to look like a mullet cut. And it kind of fit along with his character, how weird his character was with his backpack and his Hawaiian shirt and just being a goofball and being semi mentally handicapped. So I can't really say. On one hand, I've seen reviewers out there say that, this was so rotten to them that they laughed at the whole thing, but I didn't find it in that regard. I found it was just weird enough that it kept me watching, but not weird enough that I could laugh at it for being totally bizarrely rotten. And so in that regard, I was a little bit disappointed that it wasn't weirder and more rotten. And let's move on and see what other people think. I'm not going to entertain 5-star reviews or 4-star reviews because that's ridiculous. Let's just entertain 3-star and below. This is, after all, an episode of Rotten Reviews. 2.5 stars, December 31, 2019. Obviously a horrible film, but I'm for some reason starting to side with this movie more and more. I don't even know people. I guess a 5 out of 10. Yeah, I'm starting to think that this reviewer has got the same effect that I did. I went into this knowing it was going to be horribly rotten, seeing other well-known reviewers on YouTube say it was horribly rotten, and then I actually started to think, well, it's not exactly quite that rotten. I mean, I'm watching it and I'm interested in it, so is it really a failure? I don't think so. Yes, it's rotten. There's no question this is rotten, but this is not a film failure. Actually, Durst, the director, he actually made a movie that wasn't a failure. I mean, it kept people watching this, and this reviewer seeming to say the same thing as me, but he's giving this 2.5 stars. I wouldn't go that far. I'm still going to stick with my 1 star. But let's move down. December 29, 1 star. It was unfortunately hard to watch, totally sad and super cringy. I felt bad for the wrong character the whole time, and although I appreciate that John's role was probably difficult, it definitely wasn't one of his best. But we all have our good movies and bad. Was this John Travolta's worst role? I went into this film thinking that it probably was, from what other people had told me online. No, I don't think so. I think his role, I did recently a rotten review on the 2004 movie The Punisher, also starring John Travolta as a villain. I thought he did a lot worse than that, and that's a less rotten movie than this, and it's bigger budget, and it's got a lot of things going for it that this movie doesn't have. But actually, I thought Travolta's performance for what he was trying to do, for the character he was playing, was actually better in this than his role in the movie The Punisher from 2004. And there are other films that are big budget Hollywood films that Travolta's been in that I was seriously more disappointed with his performance than I was here. So I don't agree with that. I think this is not his worst role. That's not saying this is great, but that's saying that he's been in stuff where he's just performed a whole lot worse than this. Well, half a star, December 28, 2019. The way the main character acts makes me wonder if he is mentally disabled. Yeah, he's supposed to be. Seems like this was just a cash grab for an aging actor. I must be retarded for expecting better movies from my favorite actors. I'm going to say it again. Travolta's had worse acting performances in other much bigger movies. So let's leave it at that. 5-star reviews. I'm not going to read them. 2.5 stars, December 2019. I don't know what to think of this film. I don't think it's as awful as everyone says it is, yet it's not that great. Oddly enough, Travolta's performance eerily reminds me of someone I actually knew in real life. So even when he starts to do really cringy things, I can't help but wonder, would that person I knew actually do this if pushed too far? Well, first off, I'm going to say I have had personal experience with people that are similar to this. They have these mental disabilities. I don't know how you characterize them. I'm not a psychiatrist. I don't know what you consider this, if you're calling it on the spectrum or what it is. But I know that I have personally dealt with people in my family circle, so to speak, that are a lot more cringy than the way John Travolta is with this character. Believe me on this one. I'm sure that, we're seeing John Travolta do things in this film, and we're not with his character 24 hours out of this character's day. But from what I saw of this character, it's a lot less cringy to me than things I've seen in real life with real people with these problems. So I'm going to say that his performance, again, it wasn't over the top. It wasn't too far out. It rubbed me as being actually a quite mild version of what these people might be like. 1 star, December 2019. This is a joke of a movie. It's so bad it's funny. I think I could have acted better than Travolta. Yeah, I thought it was when I went into this. That's what I was looking forward to, a movie that it's so bad I could laugh out loud at it. But it's just not. It's just not that, I'm afraid. And that's why I'm also going to say, again, this is not going to become a cult classic. It's just not that. 0.5 star, December 2019. I had to see what all the reviews were already saying. John Travolta and Fred Wurst. Hang it up, has-beens, and adding Limp Dick Six in there was a vain and dumbass movie. Limp describes this whole movie. Yeah, I'm not a fan of Limp Bizkit. A lot of people my age are or were, but I didn't really get into them. Actually, I think the director, he did a passable job, because I didn't feel like shutting this off. And I mean, I've gone into big budget Hollywood movies that have 100 million plus spent on them, that are serious things, and I've just been overwhelmingly needing to shut them off or fast forward them. I didn't get that at all from this film, so I'm going to say that this director actually didn't fail on this film. He created a rotten movie, but he didn't fail to create a cohesive movie, or I would have shut this puppy off. 3 stars, December 2019. It wasn't realistic. First, if that guy was so high profile, where was his security? Why was his PA never around? Even B-movie actors have PAs, personal assistants. Travolta was good as always, regardless this film's lack of everything. He's always good. I love him. I am not a stalker. I'm a fan. Actually, not all actors and actresses, even big name ones, have these personal assistants around them at all times. Not all of them have security around them at all times. It's very much a personal decision on the part of the Hollywood celebrity we're talking about. You would be really surprised how regular some of them actually live. And then you'd be really surprised at all the crazy weird stuff that other ones that aren't as name recognizable to you, how much security they have and all this other stuff around them. So no, it's not unrealistic in that regard. The thing I did find unrealistic is that in one scene in the middle of the day, John Travolta's character Moose, he kills by accident, pretty much. He ends up killing a maid, a housekeeper of his hero celebrity, who also happened to have been, at one time in a relationship with this celebrity. He was basically banging the maid, so to speak. And it's shown in the movie that he still wants to do this with the maid, and the maid's telling him, well, I can't do that anymore. And then, he kills her right in broad daylight on the property, and there are other housekeepers and gardeners around and whatnot. And even though it's shown that the groundskeeper has gone home for the day when this happens, 2 days go by pretty much, and nobody notices this body of the maid just laying out there in this courtyard next to this fountain, right out in the middle of the open where everybody would see it. I mean, even if the celebrity didn't see it because he just didn't happen to go back there, any one of the other groundskeepers would have seen it. The celebrity's kid who was running all over the place when he was there, he would have seen it. That's the part I found real unrealistic, that the story just forgot that this maid's body was laying out there. And then when the story got back to, by the way, reminding you that this maid was out there the whole time, it's already to the point that the police have, somebody's called the police have collected the body, and the police are there now to arrest the celebrity. That's a little bit off to me. I'm sorry, but there were just too many people on the grounds of that property to not notice this maid laying out there right in broad daylight on the pavement steps, dead. No, 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 it doesn't make any sense. But as far as like not having security around him and whatnot, that's completely believable. I didn't find anything bad about that. 4 and 5 star reviews. I'm sorry. Maybe I should read just one 4 star review to see what they say. So let's try it. One 4 star review from December 2019. I loved the movie and thought it was refreshing to see Travolta really show his acting chops in an independent film that relied on the strength and talent of its players. Devon Sawa was amazing too. The reviews for this movie show how out of touch Hollywood is with their public by trashing an interesting and unique film like Fanatic and praising the tiresome, predictable, bloated, shoot 'em up bloody bores. I hope to see more celebrities, including Fred Durst, take a risk with films where they actually have to work. You know, I'll kind of agree with this. I don't agree on the 4 stars by any means, but I'll agree with what they were saying in other regards. Yes, there are a lot of big budget productions, $100 million and up productions that are so damn boring I don't want to sit through them, even though I have to talk about how boring they are. Yeah, I agree with you on that one. And Devon Sawa, his acting was good. As weird and rotten as this movie was, he actually did a good job. He played his character well. I had no problems with his acting. I thought he did a good job, believe it or not. But the 4 stars, no, no, no. And I'm not going to read any more of those. You know, a lot of 4 and 5 star reviews on all these films I'm coming across. They're just people that they want to talk something up to try to make up for the negative reviews they've seen. There's just too much of that going on. That's why I'm going to stick with 3 star and below. 2 stars, December 2019. Never meet your heroes. This is about a man named Moose. He is the world's biggest fan of the actor Hunter Dunbar, but when he gets brushed off at a book signing, he takes it personally. Now, you needn't look any further than the screenshots of Travolta's crazy bowl-cut mullet to know that you're dealing with something that is unlike anything you've seen all decade. What you may not know is that this is directed by Limp Bizkit's Fred Durst, and if that fact doesn't, well, yeah, they're probably going to go into the fact that the director has personal experience with stalkers like that. I'm sure Travolta does too, believe it or not. I don't have any reason to believe that Travolta would not have dealt with stalkers. I'm pretty sure he has, one way or the other. So that's why I'm also going to say, despite this movie being rotten, these are exactly the people that made this movie that would know from personal experience what it's like to have one of these weirdos come after you, to be your best friend. I'm going to say it's authentic in that regard, but still rotten. 1 star, December 2019. Not only unpleasant and offensive, it insults your intelligence. I'd prefer a root canal without Novocaine to this terrible whatever it was. I don't know why it's offensive. I mean, like I've stated earlier, I have personally met and been around people that are a lot more mentally weirded out than this character, and they're very much like this character, but they're a lot more severe, as it were. So I wasn't offended. 2.5 stars. This movie makes no sense. Things just don't line up. I've seen worse. Well, let's go right to my notes. I do have notes on this about problems, so let's find those. Yeah, the ad-libbing of the lines. It's obvious at one scene in particular that John Travolta is, you know, making up his lines on the fly, and it kind of shows the movie. It kind of works in a way, but in another way, it kind of takes you out of it a little bit when you realize that he's not on script. He's just making some of it up. So that's kind of a problem. It also fails, this film fails to give you the logic of why this photographer, female photographer paparazzi character, who's also the narrator, why she is like BFFs with, you know, Moose. doesn't make sense. There's no reason for this. We don't get a backstory on it, and a better movie would have given us that backstory. That's why I really say it's just 1 star for problems like this, because a decent movie would have given us at least something to go on why this female paparazzi character needed to hang around Moose and try to help him. But we didn't get that. That's why, that's a flaw, and that's what I have on my list. Her narration was also a little bit abrupt and out of place, and the word choices were a little bad, and it kind of drug me out of the believability of the story at a couple of parts, her narration. So that's a flaw. What else do I have? Let's see. The creepy music. Even though Travolta's doing things that are goofy, there'll be creepy music kind of playing between those goofy parts, and it's a little bit off-putting. It doesn't fit. Bad choice of score in the background. I mean, I'm not going to say that the creepy music was good or bad. There was nothing remarkable about it. It's just that it was definitely creepy horror movie type of music, but wedged in between moments that were completely goofy. And it just didn't work for me. Let's see, half a star, November 30, 2019. Oh my God, this was so flipping bad. How can an accomplished actor like John Travolta act in such trash? Waste of 90 minutes. I'd rather watch the impeachment hearings. Yeah, I'll agree and disagree. On one hand, yes, it's bad. But on the other hand, I've seen Travolta in so much worse when he's really trying a lot more and was paid a lot more. So I'm going to disagree mostly on that. Like I said, his performance in The Punisher 2004 and quite a lot of other bigger budget movies is really awful, worse than this in a lot of ways. 2 stars, November 27, 2019. Despite how interesting of a thriller this movie could have been, it falls flat. Devon Sawa was the single convincing performance in the movie, with Travolta being somehow underwhelming and overwhelming at the same time. The writing was just bad. There were a few entertaining moments that were completely drowned in surrounding mediocrity. Yeah, this could have been a thriller. I don't consider it a thriller. It's just not serious enough. Yeah, I mean, they're saying it's a thriller. Maybe that's what the different places list this under genre, but it really isn't a thriller. There's nothing in it that strikes the right mood. They didn't try hard enough. It's more like a goofy tragedy. Really, that's what it is. It's not a thriller by any means. Let's real quick pop over to IMDb, because there are so few user reviews on Rotten Tomatoes. I want to take a look at IMDb, where there are a hell of a lot more user input reviews on this, just for star ratings. And on the 10-point star system, IMDb has The Fanatic at 5 out of 10, and there are 6,294 votes on that, if you will. So I'm just going to leave that there, saying that to back up that this thing has hardly any on Rotten Tomatoes. 217, you might wonder how accurate that is, but IMDb actually has it higher rated. Still rotten by tomato standards, but higher than 31% with a lot more input. So, like I said, some people are actually going to find Travolta's performance, it may be not the greatest, but it didn't really rub them the wrong way. Maybe other parts of the film, other problems with the film is what they didn't like, because he's playing a character that's just straight up weird, so he does a good job of that. Let's see, we have 2 stars, November 25, 2019. The idea itself is interesting. Instead of the stalkers we are so used to seeing on the big screen, ones that are frightening, cunning, and experienced, the antagonist is a middle-aged nerd with mental deficiencies who goes to extreme lengths to get an autograph from his favorite actor. Travolta's role was actually quite convincing, to the point where he almost appeared as a completely different person. You forget that it's Travolta and instead see him as a man-child. Yeah, that's why you can't say his acting was the worst. I mean, I'm going to bring up 2004, The Punisher again. When I saw Travolta playing the villain in that film, I saw Travolta playing the villain. That's why I think it's bad. In this, I didn't see Travolta. I saw like a weirdo. So you can say this is more successful. This is a better performance, because I saw the character here. I didn't see Travolta. So that's why I'm saying this is not just John Travolta's worst acting. It is not his worst acting performance. Let's go back to my list. Let's say, what are the problems? Well, here's a major problem. When John Travolta kind of ties up the main character, his hero, he's got him tied to his bed, and he's doing weird stuff around him, and the action hero star has to use some of his acting skill to try to convince his favorite fan, his number one fan, to let him go, to that they're best friends and he should untie him. That's actually pretty cool. That's a nice part of the story. Now, the part where it goes horribly wrong after that is that Devon Sawa's character just does evil, vindictive stuff, like sociopathic stuff to his stalker fan. Instead of calling the police, he never calls the police. Not one time, even after he kicks him out of the house, after stabbing a knife through his eye and blowing his hand off with a shotgun. He kicks him out of the house, and then you would think he would go to the phone and call the police. Nope. He just sits down and cools off, and just he's not going to call the police or tell anybody. That could still work. That's not the flaw. The flaw is that we don't have enough characterization or other stuff going on in the film to explain the logic behind that. Like, why did he do that? If he was disturbed too, that's great. That would have been a great story showing how not only was the number one fan disturbed, but the actual celebrity being stalked was just as disturbed. That could work. That would have been fantastic, but it just wasn't done right. We didn't get, all we got from the celebrity, Hunter, the action hero character, was that he was banging his maid and that he was a deadbeat dad, or that he was in a custody dispute with his, not so nice ex-wife or girlfriend or whatever that he had a kid with. He was definitely a dick and he was unlikable, but it wasn't enough to explain why he was as deranged as his number one fan was. So the movie failed on that, and that's again why I say it's really rotten. It's not just that John Travolta did bad. We didn't get any idea of why this character chose to just do sociopathic things instead of calling the damn police. He had every opportunity to call the police. He didn't have to stab a knife through John Travolta's eye and take his time doing it. That makes no sense. We didn't get an explanation of why he did that. So that's a big flaw for me. In fact, that may be the biggest flaw, because that's where the movie goes, and it never goes anywhere else after that. It just says, well, and that's the way it ended. Everybody just chalked it up to a learning experience. Really? And the police weren't called or anything? And the only reason the police showed up at the end were because somebody, it doesn't say who, finally after 2 days found the Mexican maid laying out there dead, and for some reason the police decided to blame it on the celebrity instead of anything else. They just arrested him and took him away. No real explanation on how that logic works either. So anyway, this movie could have been a lot better just if it had fixed those problems, and John Travolta could have put in the same performance. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's not John Travolta's worst performance. That's not the problem here, as weird as it is. It's a lot of other stuff in the plot. Yeah. Moose loses his hand and his eye, and then the narrator says that Moose later considered it just a badge of honor as he's walking off on the streets of LA with his photographer BFF girl helping him. I guess they're going to go to the hospital. I don't know. But she says, well, Moose just chalked it up as a badge of honor to his fanhood. I mean, what? I mean, that could have worked too if that were set up properly, but it's not. The movie just kind of makes everybody involved a psycho, and then everybody walks away into the sunset after that. It makes no sense. You're left wondering if you missed something. The running time wasn't long. It was 1 hour and 28 minutes, so it had plenty of time. It could have added some minutes to explain all the stuff I said should have been, but it didn't. That was the big flaw. Let's see. We have 2.5 stars, November 24, 2019. Acting was overdone, but the ending was entertainingly disturbing. Yeah, it was disturbingly bad because it wasn't set up properly. Half a star, November 21, 2019. Made an account just to leave this rating. Okay, well, you should have left more sentences, more words there, telling us why it was half a star. That would have been helpful. 1 star, November 20, 2019. I knew it was bad, thought it would be an enjoyable bad, but it's not. It's just bad altogether. Yeah, it's just not. Even if you're wasted, you're inebriated, inebriated on some substance, you're not going to laugh at this. It's just not that, there's nothing just ironically bad about it. It's just bad. I'll agree with that. 1 star, just awful. It's been 20 years since John Travolta has made a decent movie. It's what's expected from a washed up 90s has-been Fred Durst. I wanted to like this movie, but it seemed like Travolta was trying too hard. A role like this should have been played by an actor of higher caliber. I disagree. I think his performance was not over the top for what he was doing. The movie just had so many other flaws. 1 star, November 17. The first half was decent and made my wonder what would happen next. And the second one also made me wonder when the narrative would start. Just go read the movie description and you'll know all you need to. For me, the only good thing was asking myself what it'd be like to play a role like the one of Moose, and I genuinely thought Travolta made a good job. Yeah, I don't think Travolta did bad at all. I just saw the weirdo. Unlike a lot of his other roles where it looks like John Travolta trying to act like a bad guy or something, this was definitely not one of his worst roles. Now, the problem here is also that it's got a reputation that precedes it. So people are going to come into this film now and they're going to be looking for something that's so bad that it's good, and they're not going to find it, and that's going to rub them the wrong way too. That's what happened to me. I watched some other big name YouTube reviews on this, and they told me this would be so bad that it's good, and it wasn't. It wasn't all that. I guess if you have just a really particular sense of humor, it might hit you like that, but I'm thinking for most people it's not going to. For most people, it's just going to be like a big question mark for them at the end on why a lot of weird things happened and people did weird things and it wasn't set up properly. So I'm going to leave it at that, and I'm going to say these audience, the audience score, I'd say that's fair. It could be a little bit higher, but you could be at 50% like IMDb has it, and I would still think it was fair. The critics, I'm surprised they're in the double digits. Maybe they were also convinced by Travolta's performance. In a film like this, I would think they'd be in the single digits, but no, they're not. They're not rating this as low as they've rated a lot of big budget films. So in any case, I'm going to call it good, and I'm going to see you on the next episode of Rotten Reviews.